and welcome to the show. I'm Jenna Morton.
And I'm Tosh Taylor, and on today's show, we have a couple of guests to join us today to talk about a very amazing event that they have coming up. We have with us today Myriane Ouellette of O Strategies and Cindy Comeau of C3 Leadership. Ladies, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. This is so exciting because you guys have just the most incredible event planned, and I'm so excited for people to learn more about it because you've been doing some fantastic events for years now. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of one of the is it fair to say it's kind of a centerpiece?
It's a trademark. I was doing a couple, but this one has been consistent. It's our 7th year.
Wow. 7. Mm-hmm. Oh, fantastic. So for everyone listening and watching, what exactly are we talking about? What is your event coming up?
Okay, so I'll start. It's International Women's Day, and with that, we've had it 7 years. We've had remarkable sponsors every year. We've had Lounsbury's, BMO, Teal Green, and O Strategies this year, and Sonic Image, and it takes sponsors to make these events happen. So it's all about celebrating women. The theme internationally this year is Embrace Equity. So we wanted to say Embrace Equity and then add Be the Change, because we want this to be an unconference where we're not going to do it like we've done our prior conferences. So we had to switch because of COVID. We did virtual. This year we want to really make an impact and have people moving forward with strengths, knowledge, and wisdom on how to make the changes that we need in our workplace cultures. So I met Myriane in November. Yeah. She was speaking at a conference, the B Leadership Conference in St. John, and I really, her messaging on leadership really resonated with me based on my career and my experience. She's 21st century thinking when it comes to leadership. And I really liked it. So we met after that. I actually had met your business partner. I mean, people come into your life for a reason. So it all happened, and we chatted and brainstorming on how to do it. But she does a concept called open space technology. And with that, we were trying to figure out how to change up the event, but do that. So we have changed it. We're looking for table sponsors. We've had a number of them come on board already. So a lot of organizations are embracing this concept. When they buy tickets, they also send students. We bring students. It's a very diverse group of people that are going to come together. So when I left the workplace 10 years ago now, the issues that were faced by people in the workplace were by women and by people with disabilities. And now it's grown substantially. There's so many challenges for so many different types of people, regardless of how they identify in the workplace. So that's what we want to address. How can we I have to learn about it. I don't know anymore. So we have all ages coming. Anyway, it's going to be a great event. We're really looking forward to it. So this is the brains behind the content of the day.
Okay. So talk a little bit more about this unconference, because that I noticed that in your promotional information about the conference and went, ooh, this sounds really, really good.
Yeah, we're seeing it a lot more happening. Instead of having the traditional panels and the speakers line up and where you're only consuming knowledge, you're really just hearing about it and taking notes or whatnot. This concept called open space technology kind of flips the conference on its head, I guess, and it allows all participants to be the highlight of the show, really. So really, we have a little bit of a panel at first where we're exploring the theme around how might we create more equitable workplaces. So it's kind of about demystifying it a little bit and getting some content matter experts in it. So we have, I'm going to cheat here, we have Christine Iroku, who's with the Newcomer Women Leadership Program with Prude Inc. And then we have Jeff Dubrow, who is actually, he does a lot of consulting. He works with Nexus Consulting, and he basically scans budgets and things like that on equity all over the world. So he's bringing in like an expert lens from a world point of view. And he's also a man, which is kind of cool working in this field. Joanne Perron, who is with the Coalition of Pay Equity New Brunswick. So she'll bring in quite a New Brunswick kind of local view. And then finally we have Mylène Després, who's a local entrepreneur and works at La Station Inc. and is very much involved in municipal politics and everything having to do with equity, diversity, and inclusion, and so much more. She's also a great graphic designer and webpage developer. So we have that short little piece in the morning where we have a little bit of a panel where I'll be asking them questions just to start getting people thinking about the issue. And then we're going to really open the space. So I'm going to propose this theme and we're going to co-create the agenda together. So with about 200 people.
200 max.
200 max, 200 max. It's our limited, and it's already filling up
We're
pretty
doing
quickly.
well.
So get your tickets now if you do want to come. But essentially, we're co-creating this agenda. So we're saying, what are the questions that people have around equity in the workplace? Because often it's just about demystifying it, and we're not quite understanding how we go about it. You know, and it's not just about, yeah, we understand we need 50-50 women and men in, you know, high leadership positions or in the workplace, but it's so much more than that, right? And it's about gender diversity, and it's about diversity inclusion as well. And it's about saying, well, what is the difference between equity, diversity, and inclusion? Because, you know, there is a difference, although we do tend to lump them up in one little thing. So it's just demystifying. Let's ask the questions we need to know. We have a bunch of experts in the room, people from different walks of life where we can start exchanging stories. And then we break out into little work groups. And those work groups are kind of start flowing into one another after a while because we're able to be mobile during this work. We don't have to stick to one little spot. And then at the end, we kind of do this convergence piece where we're like, well, what did we learn? Yeah.
I love that.
That's, yeah, exactly.
It's an unconference. Now you understand.
Yes, exactly.
And then from the day, we're asking people as they register, can we release your name and your email address? Because you've been part of many conversations through the day. I think there's 6 sessions. We're going to break it up into 6 sessions with like 10 tables each session.
Yeah.
So you've been part of the day. Other people might want to connect with you after the fact. So will you give us permission to release that? Because at the end, O Strategies pulls all the findings from the day together in a report that then is sent to everybody who's attended.
Yeah, so we remember what has been said,
Right.
and that we can keep connecting and keep exchanging. So this event is the ultimate networking event because you really get to meet and connect with people on themes that are really passionate to you, on themes that you really care about. So, you know, when you connect with people on themes you care about, you have this natural, really, you know, symbiotic connection. So you can develop relationships on a long-term basis.
I think that's something that has always stood out to me about the events that you've been doing for International Women's Day is how you've always made a point of drawing in students and newcomers and trying to mix those kind of little silos people find themselves in, right? Of corporate world or university or, you know, all of that. And this just seems like it's just building on that again to get everyone to mix.
And I'll add to that because Cindy's great at doing that. And I think that this year we've really been able to kind of mesh this corporate space with the nonprofit space because the nonprofit space are developing or they're working on these complex issues. They're the ones kind of pushing the thought ahead. And the corporate space is there to learn from them and take what they've learned so that they can incorporate and transform their organizations to have better cultures so that they can take care of their humans.
What do you think is your goal for the event? Like when, at the end of the day, what do you want people saying about it?
That it's the best conference they've ever been to.
Unconference.
They're not going to miss it next year. That we continue to stay relevant with what the issues are in the workplace, and we really want to make a difference in our community. So this is how we're going to build community together.
I forgot to mention my pronoun. I'm she, her, by the way. And that's another thing that we're kind of trying to promote is this understanding of what is the basis of for us to understand each other as a community, as a society. So we'll have little pins to say, to have our pronouns where people can use them after as well. And that's just one little thing. But I think what we did talk about when we were organizing this event, the first objective was really to create more awareness in the community. We're so behind. We're very much behind in terms of how equity in the workplace is represented. And we're not even ready to start talking about diversity and inclusion because that's a whole other ballgame. So really it's about creating that awareness and start the dialogue so that we can have better workplaces. Yeah.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit there. When you're saying that we're not ready, do you mean we in New Brunswick, we in Canada, we in the world?
Yeah, I mean, there's different levels. I think in New Brunswick we're far behind compared to other places in Canada. Not all of them, but I do think that we have a lot to work for, a lot of work to do. I'm sorry. In Canada, it's not too bad, but we are still behind compared to other countries, definitely, in terms of just creating this space to open that dialogue around and I'm going to say equity, diversity, and inclusion together. I hate putting the three together because really they're three different terms, and we often, in companies will say, okay, well, we're going to open up a position, an EDI position, and that'll solve all our problems. But we're not creating any spaces within the organizations to be able to actually talk about what our biases are and how we start attacking those biases to deconstruct them, to actually start creating system change within our workplaces.
So when you started your own business, O Strategies, was this one of your main goals right from the start?
Well, O Strategies is all about creating spaces for dialogue. So whether that's EDI, equity, diversity, and inclusion, that's definitely something that we work towards. We don't necessarily train people in it because we're not the subject matter experts, but we are experts in facilitating dialogue and in having processes that allow people to speak their minds, but in a safe context by creating, we call it as psychological safety. So we create these containers, we call them, where we facilitate people through some processes to understand complex problems. So it can be, for instance, we've launched the CMHC grant that we received, and we're working on a big housing project here in New Brunswick for low-income housing. So we've been working with community partners all around New Brunswick to help us find solutions on how might we have affordable housing for people in New Brunswick. So we work on some really complex issues, but we just create the space. We're designers. We design the spaces. So, and this is definitely, when we were talking to Cindy about all this, I was saying, well, after COVID, everybody's kind of sick of just sitting and listening,
It's true.
So what's the point? You can do this sitting on a Zoom screen and listening to the conferences and panels, and you'll get some out of it for sure. Information is important. But I think people are craving connection, and so open space technology, or open space just as general, is a really open method that creates a lot of connection while we're working on complex issues. That this method has been used for so many things. I've seen use cases of developing a huge building based on a 3-day open space events where you had a whole bunch of architects and engineers and a whole bunch of stuff working on this problem. So you can really take this method and apply it to anything complex. This is certainly complex.
So we actually did pull a team. When I posted my events in the past, most times I did it by myself, but I would have, the odd time I would have some people that I would have as mentors along the way, Aldea Landry being one of them since day one. But this year, with this topic, it was just all happened. We just pulled some people together. So we have Jessica Mattia, who's the Director of Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity for JDI. She's on our B team, we call it. We have Nancy Theriault from Medavie Blue Cross, who's on our B team. She's very knowledgeable in this area. And Michelle Duffy with Lounsbury's, being in the HR world and on the board at the Chamber. So we brought in some people to help with this, but this is the main brain behind it. And I'm very grateful because, again, it's a topic that I myself don't know much about, but yet I understand it's a very important and timely topic. And when we spoke earlier about New Brunswick being behind, in my career, I found that I was told that everything started in the West and came East, and that was by a gentleman. And then over the years, I really have to admit, trends start in the West, not in Ontario and not in Quebec. They start in the West and they move East. So I think that's what we're experiencing again. My career, there were very few women in leadership roles. You fought to get there, and yet across the country there were many women in leadership roles. So we're just behind, but that's okay. We're just going to accelerate the pace of picking up.
Yeah, and I think having more and more people moving here is going to make that change.
Absolutely.
But I agree with you. I have always said that New Brunswick is about 7 years behind the rest of the country.
In everything.
And in everything, quite literally. And it'll be nice to see the change. It will be really nice to see the change. Can you imagine 7 years ago when you started this, that this is where you would be now, having an A team and a B team?
That's a great question.
Anything I've done in my this next chapter of my life once I retired, I had no clue where I was going with it. I just started. I was a John Maxwell certified coach, teacher, and speaker. That's something I felt I needed to have something because insurance, what you learn in insurance and the designations there really don't translate well. There's nothing sexy about that. So I decided I needed to do something, and it was suggested I take the leadership because that's the role I played that had the most impact on people I worked with. So I did some simulcasts with the John Maxwell team to start with. They were called Live to Lead. And that led to people liking seeing people on stage instead of just on a screen. So with that, I ended up transitioning. Again, pivot. You have to pivot your business every once in a while. So I pivoted to calling my events ACT. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Advancing community together is what my case came up with. That's where the ACT came from. Again, it's people that come together to do this. I've just been using the platform that's been built through all of this to help showcase the talent that we have. Again, when I was working here in New Brunswick, in Moncton, but working with all the people in other provinces across Canada, I didn't know the talent that was in my own province. I had no opportunity to meet them. And now, when I see it, it's mind-blowing. So when people collaborate, but especially women, it's pixie dust. Yeah, the Northern Lights, it all happens. She just saw the Northern Lights this weekend. This week in
I kept
Newfoundland.
looking out each night.
I was quite up north, so that's why.
So no, I didn't have a vision for it. In fact, when we started, All Day Ed Landry came on board to help introduce me to people, and we had a luncheon. And when we came to the luncheon, I made everybody take a table number from a bowl when they came in. So husbands and wives didn't sit together. So the next year, the men didn't come back because they couldn't sit with their wife. But the wives really enjoyed it because they met new people in a comfortable environment. So we just did that for a few years, and then COVID changed things, and we did it virtual, and now we're changing it up again with an unconference. Who knows what's going to happen next year? I have no idea.
That's part of the fun of it, though,
It is,
too, is
absolutely.
seeing these things evolve. And like you say, that we talk about it all the time on the show and with each other, this idea of collaborating and coming together is just the most powerful tool we have.
Exactly. It's so necessary. And we know that if we do want to have some real impact, some real system change, when I'm talking about systems changes for us to be coming into a system, into a workplace, and things already being in place so that you feel comfortable as a woman being in a workplace, or as somebody who identifies as a woman, to be comfortable in whatever they want to represent themselves in. That takes community involvement. It takes a whole system perspective. So you need everybody at the table to actually be able to work on that. So in systems change theory, that is the one thing, is inviting the whole system at the table. So this is what we're doing. This is kind of huge. We might just be that seed to help New Brunswick's organizations transform.
Well, and I would think too, and I'm saying this from not having ever been within the corporate world, but knowing that you can go back to your organization and say, oh, I know that these 5 other corporate entities were also at this table, and we're at this conference, and throughout the city, we are all trying to get to this at the same time. I think that would make a huge difference, rather than individuals and, like you say, individual roles being created at businesses. That's a start. You need to know that everyone's doing it.
And these people also feel very isolated, right? Like when you are hired as an EDI, management consultant or whatever for a big company, you feel really alone up there, because really you are the one trying to make the changes up at the top, which sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. But you really, when you're alone, you know how you feel. You feel isolated, you feel without resources. So bringing this community together allows that person to call up Deborah at whatever other corporation and say, hey, what are you doing? And I'm having issues with this point, and can you help me? And so it really creates this community around driving change.
Absolutely. And you had mentioned, Cindy, that you didn't know the amazing people that were right here in your province, and that's also something that we talk about all the time. We actually just did an episode on New Brunswick authors, and I didn't know any of them, because I think when you live in a place, you kind of almost get stuck in a bubble, right? Like, there cannot possibly be amazing people around me in this space. And then, like, Moncton is jam-packed with some really incredible people, and the entire province, I'm sure, too. And we need events like this, the collaboration, to be able to meet these people. That's part of the reason we started the podcast, is so that we can meet people like you guys that are doing these changes.
That's exactly it. That's basically how we choose who comes on the show. It's like, who haven't we met or who haven't we talked to lately that we really want to meet? Yeah, let's figure out when we're going to get them on.
That's true.
Pretty much how it works. And
Self-serving.
Well, yeah, and then we try to like tie it in with when your event's coming up. Like, oh yeah, we'll wait to have Cindy on for a little bit till she's got her event coming.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is also the immigrants that are coming in. And I tend to do a lot to empower women. So that's kind of become my focus, is empowering women and also helping our immigrants settle and retain them here. And I just did some training for NBCC in February, and I went to their campuses, and it was on networking because people don't understand how to network. I just think it's second nature, and I love to do it, but now I'm learning most people don't like to do it, and especially our immigrants, it's not how things operate in their countries.
No.
If you network internationally, that's viewed upon as being very distasteful. You can do it personally, but not professionally. So professionally, that's why so many of our immigrants have 2, 3, 4 degrees, because it's your resume that speaks to who you are. So when you're in India and there's a population of 1.1 billion, it's your resume that helps you stand out. Whereas if you live in New Brunswick, where there's less than 1 million people, your uncle's brother's cousin can help get you work. Well, that's not how it works for them. So helping them settle here, I mean, their resumes are just incredible. So now what we're doing, what I have been very fortunate to do, is have some relationships built up with different organizations to say, when I meet people and I think they're credible and they've applied for something at your position, at your organization already, can I send you the resume and the posting that they applied to? Will you walk it to the hiring person's desk and say, you at least need to interview this person? Because names on their resume are intimidating to people here.
Right.
I mean, let's be really honest. I can't even pronounce a French. I don't even pronounce my name correctly, and I'm married into a French family. I say it wrong, so I don't even attempt to pronounce most of their names. But I'll get their first name down. But I'm there to just say that's okay. We'll learn as we go. But the immigrants in our community are just amazing. The future is bright. The future
talent,
between the
the talent
students
moving here
and the immigrants, we've got a bright future.
Absolutely.
And we're going to have to wrap up here and tell people how to get to the event. I just want to retention. Remember.
Oh,
that
I beg
word.
them to stay all the time.
Yeah.
So if you know
That's what
on
we
the
need to
job
work
training
on,
places
people.
that do it, let me know, because I know lots of them that want to do
And
that.
not just immigrant, but our youth.
Oh, our youth. That's what I say.
Everyone.
Our youth
Oh, yes.
too.
Yeah,
Retain our youth.
Yes, it's the retention piece that we fall down.
I don't
on
mind
all
them
the
going
time,
away to
but-
university, but come back.
Yeah, but come
travel
back.
the world and get
Because you
exposure,
learn so
and
much
then
when
come
you
back.
go, and
Exactly.
come back.
Go, but
Anyway.
come back.
Yeah.
So,
We'll have another topic on that, another show on that another day, because that's one of my
Very important.
passions. So we do have to wrap up though. So before we do, where can people find out about the event and about your individual businesses as well?
okay, so the event itself is 2023 IWD Greater Moncton on Eventbrite. So that's easy to find. Tickets are there. And as far as businesses go, C3 Leadership is my business. I have a website. I'm on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm with O Strategies. ostrategies.ca, so all one word .ca, and we're on everything. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever you want, you'll find us.
Perfect. Thank you both so much for coming in.
Thank you very
And
much.
yeah, we'll have to schedule the next one to just talk about retention.
Did we say the date? March 15th.
Oh, yeah.
March
That's a good
15th.
idea.
15th.
Yeah, sorry, it's March 15th. It's usually on, yes, thank you. It's usually March the 8th for International Women's Day around the world, but because that's our March break, that's always been a challenge. So we're doing it on the 15th at the Wingate, India. And we're going to start at 8:30 in the morning, and we're going to go till 4 o'clock, and there's food included in your tickets, and there's going to be lots of fun.
Amazing. Well, Jenna, we'll have the link as well in the show notes. So grab your tickets and head on down to an amazing event. And again, like Jenna said, thank you both so very much.
Thank you.
For having me.